Ben, Rob and Robbo.
Streaming across the globe, Ben Norris, Rob McKnight and David Robinson.
Ben, Rob and Robbo. News, reviews, entertainment news. It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo. Ben, Rob and Robbo. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.
Welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Here's Rob McKnight.
Hello and welcome to the Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. There's a lot happening today and we can't wait to talk to you about it all. We have the eliminated contestants from Big Brother and Masterchef joining us, plus some big television news with Mulk. So there's lots to hang around for. Thank you for your company on this Monday. I'll tell you who else I'm glad to see back. It's David Robinson and Ben Norris. Welcome back, boys. Ben, hopefully this week will start off fresh and new and, we are grateful to have you back.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm also wearing fresh underpants. I'm all prepared.
And Robbo, I took a very interesting phone call from you on Thursday that you were actually throwing up on the phone.
Yeah, well, let's just say that I can't vomit very well, and it's very loud, it's very violent, and no one should have to hear it, and I felt really bad that you did, but, I had to let you know that I wasn't faking it, but I'm just worried about what bloody hell was happening on that Thursday episode? What? You had two ladies?
Yeah, it became the Joe, Rob and Susie show.
Yeah,
I had to think about that for a moment. Didn't quite
Very
flow
catchy.
as well.
That you did.
Not catchy.
Nah. They did a great job, though. It was very lovely.
They did. Susie was already booked to come on and fill in for Ben, but Joe, God love her, filled in at the last moment when you took ill. And I feel like we've had a bonding experience. I almost feel like I've held your hair back as you're throwing up into the toilet. So
It's not a pretty sight, so I appreciate that, though. Thank you.
all right.
What a quiff
There is a lot to talk about, a lot of hot button issues, and we begin with breaking news this afternoon. As Victoria's second wave of COVID-19 gets worse, just this morning, Minister Jenny Mikakos revealed a massive 75 new cases have been recorded in just one day. The minister broke down the statistics in a press conference a little earlier.
So this takes us to a total of 2,099 confirmed cases of coronavirus in Victoria. There's a net increase of 71 cases as 4 previous indeterminate cases have been reclassified. So the breakdown is we have 1 case in hotel quarantine, 14 linked to outbreaks, 37 were detected through routine testing, and 23 are still under investigation. And as you would appreciate, as new cases come through, in some cases very late into the previous evening, we're still looking, and the department is still looking at potential further links to known outbreaks of those ones that are both through routine testing as well as the ones under investigation.
That footage courtesy of 9 News, and Premier Daniel Andrews hasn't ruled out imposing lockdowns on so-called hotspots. Ben, as a Victorian, would you be happy for these lockdowns to be put in place?
Yeah, I think that we could see that kind of coming about a week ago. And I think that the idea of having area restrictions would be great. I think in these particular areas that have been heavily affected and these cases have arisen, I think we need to quarantine those. I don't necessarily think we need to go into a full state lockdown at this stage. I think it'd be interesting to see if we can do a partial lockdown with where these issues are. And also, it looks that schools to be a bit of an issue as well with some of the viruses spreading there, and I believe that those schools are being locked down as well. So, look, I think it's going to be an interesting time. And like I've always said, it's going to be a bit of a zigzag and a bit of a back and forward before we completely understand, what we're dealing with.
Well, Robbo, everyone wanted these restrictions to ease. Queensland's been in a lot of trouble, and in more breaking news, the West Coast versus Richmond match has been postponed. It's forced a major revamp of round 5, my apologies. The AFL are now having to deal with this. Restrictions are there for a reason. We've become too complacent, haven't we?
A very good point from both of you, but I think this is the point. Everyone wants to get back out there and do their thing, but it's if you do it too quickly, then you stay in the lockdown, in the lockdown environment. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. The AFL started too early. The NRL is just lucky at the moment, but I can't imagine that the NRL season will go, full speed, the whole time. This season, I just can't imagine that it would work that way. There is going to be people who get sick from it. The other thing is, in this, we were talking about a lot where Dan Andrews was very tough. Obviously, he's been named Dictator Dan in the press and everything. I was reading, and I hate to admit this, but I was reading Andrew Bolt, and he was saying that the biggest problems were that they were putting on these really big restrictions, on one side, but they weren't actually doing the restrictions when people were sick. The quarantine wasn't strict. So that's how it kind of exploded in Victoria. I thought that was a really interesting point. Obviously, we're going to take it with a grain of
Although
salt,
there's been a lot of misinformation about this, hasn't there, Robbo? Because some people are trying to blame the Black Lives Matter protests, and there is no evidence to suggest that, while I think it was stupid for everyone to be congregated together, there's no actual evidence to suggest that there has been a spread because of the protest. But Andrews came under fire for blaming families, but, it's like we don't like facts in this country sometimes. The statistics show families have spread this disease, doesn't it?
Exactly right. We like facts when they suit us, when it means that we can go back to the beach and go back to the pub. I think it's one of those things, unless it affects you directly, it's almost like we're getting kind of desensitized to it. Well, I don't know anyone that's got it. I don't know anyone who died from it. So why do I have to worry about it? Exactly the wrong thing. I think it's harder in this day and age, when we're so kind of connected, but so kind of disconnected. We want to do what we want, when we want. We want what we want when we want it. And I think that's probably really affecting how this is all happening together. What they're saying is things like, people who are infected were put into hotels, and then the security guards were not given any training or not specific training. They then took, the disease that they caught from the people in the hotel back to their families. There was no actual kind of quarantine of the sites, as opposed to, well, you can't hug your grandmother, you can't see your mother on Mother's Day. I can see where people are starting to get a little bit negative about the Andrews government.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward. Moving on, and it's causing stress and anxiety for millions of out-of-work Australians, but the federal government is refusing to release their plans for what will happen to the JobKeeper payment in September. A growing number of critics believe that the Morrison government is waiting for the outcome of the highly contested Eden-Monaro by-election. Robbo, it sounds like this is blatant political issues, politicising people's lives and livelihoods.
If it quacks like a duck, Robert McKnight, and walks like a duck, Robert McKnight, then I think it might be a duck. This is actually outrageous. This is. I've called you a lot worse, so I think I'd be happy if you take the duck. It sounds
like duck.
Oh, yes. Look, yeah. I was going to do a joke there, but I didn't. Yes, I think that this is heavily politicizing the issue. I think this is gross. It's actually gross. Don't you think? Like, it's just all these people who are having this anxiety and this concern and this worry about what I'm going to do in September, because the government loves to say snap back. But the jobs aren't there at the moment. People aren't hiring because the economy is still slow. And then to go, well, we might just do a little sneaky here, and we'll wait to see if we win in Eden-Monaro, and then we'll release what we're going to do. I think it's very poor form and disgusting.
But in fair, maybe they don't have a plan and they're waiting to see. We are drawing a long bow.
They do have the plan. No, we're not. They do have the report. The report has been commissioned. It's been delivered 4 days earlier. I can't remember the man's name, but he has delivered it 4 days earlier.
But that's a report. That doesn't mean they've made their policy about it and made their decision.
We'll release the report then. Why not release the report?
Well, look, staying with politics for the moment, and an exclusive news poll for The Australian has shown that Prime Minister Scott Morrison is enjoying record approval numbers. But appears the love fest isn't translating to the coalition, who is only narrowly ahead of Labor in the two-party preferred. Robbo, why isn't good poll numbers for Scott Morrison translating into good numbers for the government?
Because the government has made many, many mistakes, over the past couple of years. Well, let's just go with year. Scott Morrison is the face of the government, but sports rorts hasn't finished. And there is more and more coming out about that every day. I think it's just, you've got a face there, so you like the face, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it translates to government. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why the government needs to go into the room of mirrors and have a bloody good hard look at themselves. Because if one guy's getting it because there are things that are going well, wait for things to go bad like it does in Victoria with Dan Andrews. Wait for that. and then it'll all turn. And then, you know what my prediction is? The coalition will turn on itself like it has always in the past, the same as Labor. Governments will turn the moment that Scott Morrison isn't delivering the numbers that he was.
But he is, isn't he, Ben? Scott Morrison has been delivering the numbers, but it's just this weird thing where that's not translating to a big lead for the coalition.
Yeah, look, I think he started off with a really rocky year this year. 2020 was not great for him with the bushfires. However, his approval rating has absolutely grown. I must admit, I've never really been a big fan of ScoMo, but in the face of danger this year with the COVID-19 crisis, I actually have a lot more faith in him and his leadership. I think he learnt from some of those mistakes earlier in the year and he's progressed. I think some of those figures are going to change. And Robbo, I just want to quickly take you to task on something. You know, it seems like there's a really negative vibe that you have when you're talking about Daniel Andrews. I would say the man has done more than enough and he is trying to deal with something which, you know, is a big issue. This, as to what's happened in Victoria, could have happened in any other states. Need I remind you, the pokies and gambling and all of that is still happening in New South Wales. You know, Victoria, we are dealing with some very heavy restrictions here, and it would seem like a case of COVID has broken out in a few different areas, getting our numbers up over 70, which I completely understand, but the man is evolving every day and trying to do his best. So I think it was a little unfair for you to be like, yeah, look what's going on with Dan Andrews. Like, I mean, the man's doing a fantastic job.
No, hold on. All right. Just quickly, I wasn't doing it. I was just repeating what Andrew Bolt said, and I said that Andrew Bolt had said this. So I wasn't actually having a go at Dan Andrews. I was just reporting about what other people are saying about why your Victoria state is receiving this, you know, this COVID increase. I wasn't having it go at Dan Andrews.
This is the point, isn't it? That, and this has been my point from the get-go. We've had politicians on the Liberal side in state politics in Victoria having a go at Chairman Dan for locking everything down. And I said, if he eases restrictions, is people like Tim Smith, I think it's Tim Smith, going to take responsibility for the outbreak? And I bet they're not. Now they're going to have a go at Dan Andrews for what he's done wrong to allow the COVID outbreak. And I am sick of this politics. This is just complete BS from people who are not having to make the hard decisions. You know, Anastasia Palaszczuk is under enormous pressure from the federal government, from state governments to open her borders, and yet when we're seeing flare-ups, you've got to say she's done the right thing. People can still get into Queensland if you really want to. There's been something like 500,000 people being given passes to come into the state. If you really want to come in, you can. It's a deterrent. And it's just not a willy-nilly, I'm going to go up to Dreamworld today. You know, you can get through if you fill out the paperwork and you do the right things, and it's a way of containing a disease that we still don't have a handle on, no matter what we think we do. Anyway, let's move on. And Coca-Cola has joined other huge brands like Honda, Hershey and Unilever in pausing all advertising on Facebook and Instagram. The soft drink giant says it will stop all advertising on the social media platform for at least 30 days from July 1. The boycott is in response to Facebook's decision to not monitor hate speech and hate speech groups using the site. CEO Mark Zuckerberg has released new policies designed to address many of the criticisms. Ben, this is classic, isn't it? Facebook has been notorious for not calling out people, Donald Trump, and hate speech. Would you ever delete your account?
Oh, look, I think if it warranted it, I think at this particular point, nothing has really warranted me to delete my Facebook as such. However, I wouldn't completely rule that out. I think that I think what some of these brands are trying to do, there is definitely some merit with that. And I think that they're trying to go down the right path. I think what we're going to see, though, is with social media and policing social media, there's going to have to be a lot of evolution that's going to take place. And I think it's going to happen really quickly. And it's probably going to happen when you see big brands forcing something like Facebook into changing its ways. Censorship is something that I think a lot of people have issue with. So how that censorship is going to get outlaid is still going to be really tricky. So I think, you know, this evolution process is going to take a while.
Yeah, it's interesting. Twitter is being applauded for the stance it's taking on hate speech and the like. Facebook does seem to have been about all the bottom dollar. They're happy to take this money from Russian bots to interfere with elections. They're happy to make money off videos promoting hate speech. The only way, Robbo, that they will change their tune is if big companies say, we're not advertising with you anymore. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah, that is right, Rob. I think it's a two-edged sword here. So basically, big companies are getting the kudos for saying, well, we're gonna, we're not going to spend money with them, and we're getting the reflection back on that we're good people. I read a report just recently that said that it actually won't make a massive dent these 30 days or 31 days from big advertisers, because the majority of Facebook's bottom line comes from small to medium businesses who direct advertise to you. That's their bread and butter.
The post
but what we're seeing here, yeah, that's right. But what we're seeing here is kind of a good thing. If we're seeing these big brands doing this, it forces Facebook to then go, oh, yeah, we are going to change our ideas and things like that. What worries me is that after the 31 days and things maybe die down in the area, I hope it doesn't, all the advertising will flow back. It's not like they're using the headline. They're using the headline just as much as Facebook uses advertising to make money.
Of course.
So
the thing is, I think what's very clear is Zuckerberg does not care about social issues.
Agreed.
And, he really just cares about the bottom dollar and will only be moved if Facebook has a lot of power. We all use it. We do this show directly onto Facebook, and he has a lot of power to make or break. Companies have gone bust because of changes Facebook have made that increases Facebook's revenues but hurts the businesses trying to promote themselves on Facebook. So, it's not an elegant or what's the word I'm looking for?
Allocation?
No, egalitarian. That's not the word. It's something like that. I can't say it. I'm having a mental blank. But it's not.
I think we know.
Maybe someone will write in and tell us.
Yeah, it's not a platform that is trying to do the right thing by society. It is literally a cash cow, and that's
correct.
And as users, as long as we accept that, then we're fine. And look, I do like connecting with people on Facebook. I use Twitter as a news feed and connecting in a different way, but I use Facebook to connect with my family and friends. And so as long as you know what you're getting in your news feed, and occasionally in my news feed, I get to see what my family and friends are doing, because most often or not, I'm getting promoted articles or I'm getting, things that I don't care about. But anyway, that's a whole other story with Facebook. Look, a former Tongan schoolboy has revealed that he's still hurt and ashamed by Chris Lilly's character, Jonah. Philip May was the subject of a documentary called Our Boys in 2004. Lilly had seen the documentary and also visited Philippe's school 3 years later. The Jonah character starred in the hit... Sorry, I see how that's meant to be now. The documentary and also visited Philippe's school 3 years later. This Jonah character starred in the hit comedy series Summer Heights High. Philippe says he hasn't come forward in the past because of a fear of ridicule. In light of racial stereotyping being examined all over the world, Netflix has removed Summer Heights High from its platform. Ben, should everything that's be offensive be removed?
I think it's really an interesting debate, and I think it is changing every day. The new shows that have been cancelled, I'm going to talk about that in entertainment. Family Guy's been affected. The Golden Girls has been affected. Like I've been saying, I think it's an individual situation where we look at the reasons and we look at each case individually, is what I mean to say. I will say one thing, and that is that I still believe maybe classifying these shows is probably the smartest way to go about it. Completely wiping them from us in this cancel culture, I think is probably now not seeming like the right thing to do. I think some of these things probably can still stay online with some heavy classifications before the show starts, so that the programs are actually acknowledging who they may be upsetting. It happens with a lot of Indigenous content in Australia, which has always been a problem and has always upset the Aboriginal community, and that is that censorship is there for a reason. So it acknowledges, and sometimes acknowledgement is enough.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying there, Ben. On kind of going back to the Jonah thing, I'm going to put this out there. It wasn't a caricature in a negative aspect. If you look at the Our Boys documentary and then you look at Jonah, they almost say the same things. They act the same way. Is this not observational comedy? What I will say opposite to that is Jamie. We all know Jamie, the private school girl. yeah, there are girls that don't act exactly like that. That's a caricature, like a very big one. But there are so many elements in her that I think anyone who's met a private schoolgirl, especially on the North Shore of Sydney, hello, Abby, that they will understand that all of these kind of attributes come together to make that kind of character. But with Jonah, I just thought, is it not just observational about, how he acted? And I don't know that it should be cancelled. Also, we've got to remember, at the end of Summer Heights High, Jonah was the subject of a really wonderful, really beautiful story arc that wasn't offensive, that was really lovely. No other character got it. I agree with Ben. I think there should be a warning, possibly like Disney does, where Disney says, some of these themes might be culturally outdated. Here's a warning. To pull them off is just ridiculous. Ben, I know that you've got that story with the Golden Girls coming up in entertainment. I can't wait to discuss that with you because I think that is the pinnacle of outrage. But Robert.
Go, Ben.
Oh, I just was going to say about social commentary. Like, social commentary is important, and I think it's a great way of being able to express yourself, but not all social commentary is okay. And I think what we need to realize is that individually, as we are going through these cases with a fine-tooth comb, as it would appear at the moment, I think we need to listen and we need to think about it. And I think with this particular case, hearing that somebody has a personal story with that series that made it hard for them in any way, the minority still needs to be heard. It still needs to be reflected. So, like...
No, sorry, Ben, I really agree with you. But if it's one person being offended, does that mean that everything should be cancelled from one person?
Well,
the minorities...
Really quickly, that's not my... Sorry, my point was, don't watch. Don't watch it.
But it's interesting when you are the subject, because the similarities, everyone who knows this young man says the character Jonah was him. But let me ask you this. Is it different when it's not seen as racist? In 2015, celebrity dermatologist Dr. Frederick Brandt killed himself after being portrayed on the Netflix comedy The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. The doctor had worked for celebrities, including Madonna, and was said to have been left devastated by his unflattering portrayal in the Tina Fey series.
Dr. Fluff is here. Jacqueline, you look fantastic.
Thank you, Sydney.
Would you like TV by work? What do you want to watch? CNN? Pornography?
No, thank you, Sydney. I don't have time for the works today. I just want to talk to you about my toes. As you know, Julian loves my feet for sex reasons. I'm just not feeling good about them for some reason.
Well, we can do a toenail resizing. You can have a foot facelift, or you can talk.
Well, which do you recommend?
I cannot choose. That's like asking me which one of my children's placentas was the most delicious.
So, Ben, this episode is still online, even though it's widely believed this guy took his own life because of it. Where's the outrage here?
Well, I think the outrage is definitely there, and I think that what is most evident amongst people that I see who have had extreme amounts of plastic surgery is insecurity, and that reflection makes me try to be a little bit more careful in the way that I interact with them. You know, a lot of the time when you see somebody who has had a lot of Botox or has had a lot of fillers and they have this sort of stoic look about them, you think that they're strong in character. I actually don't see that to be the case. I remember seeing this episode and hearing the stories afterwards and being really disgusted. I think it's shocking that this episode is still left online, considering that, the door is still wide open about...
Yeah, but we don't know that he killed himself because of this episode. So
look,
does all comedy,
absolutely,
all dramatization
I get that.
A lot of his friends said he was left devastated by the episode, that he spoke about a lot, that it was consuming him, and coincidentally, a few weeks later, he kills himself after the episode was uploaded.
There's a lot of facts in this, by the way, just to say that this man did kill himself because of that episode. And let me just say, it was so insensitive, it was so over the top, and had that had been done to me on a high-rating show like that, and I felt like I'd been made fun of by the world, I would feel like the lynch mob is actually very large, and I would feel very silenced by it, and I feel for that man. I think that that's really inappropriate. Let me just say, Robbo, have someone had been involved in a caricature that was put on a global stage like that, where someone was directly making fun of you, and the confusion being is this social commentary? Is it okay that these people are laughing at me? You know, there's just so many places that this goes wrong.
But does that mean we can't ever have parody? Because this was a public figure. He made a fortune from being a celebrity dermatologist, plastic surgeon.
That's got nothing to do with it. What, are you saying because he was successful that he's exempt from feeling inappropriate? Like,
no,
exempt
I'm
from
not saying he's exempt. I'm not saying he's exempt from feeling, but comedy and parody is based on making fun of people, especially people in the limelight. So my question is, are we just not allowed to do parody anymore because someone might take it the wrong way?
We have to be really careful about it. And I just want to say that I grew up in the 80s and 90s where there was very lack of LGBTI being referenced and I had no heroes to look up to. And 9 times out of 10, when LGBTI characters were being represented on television, it was to mock them. And so let me tell you that going through my school life in my 80s and 90s, you know, people would mock me because of my similarities to, say, Bob Down. You know, there was barely anybody that I could look up to. And I can tell you that I would go home and say to my mum, I don't want to go to school. My mum would ask me why. And I couldn't say. I couldn't say to mum, I mean, I didn't know that I was gay. All I knew was that I was getting this abuse and it was coming from the ways in which my minority was being mocked. And we've come a long way since then, and I'm really proud of that. But representing my minority means that I create a louder voice and I try and evolve like everybody else and do the right thing.
I understand that, but I've got 2 things for you. Do you enjoy Bob Down's comedy?
I'm going to have to be really honest.
He's making fun of gay people. Like, are you
understand. No, well, I'm going to say something really controversial. I love Mark. I think he's an amazing entertainer. I've worked with him before, and I understand that he's not coming from a place of malice. I've never enjoyed his humor. I've never enjoyed being represented with that extremity, but I do understand that some people love it, and that's fine. But do I think that Bob Down is relevant these days? I really don't. I find it really distasteful for me.
And so, okay, I understand. I respect that entirely, Ben, and this is why, like, I want to hear your opinion. I really do. So I'm going to ask you, though, can Alec Baldwin, for example, no longer play Donald Trump because that's a parody, that's making fun of someone on a global stage? Is that also out of the picture now?
I think that that's where we're heading. I think we're not going to see Alec Baldwin. I mean, I don't think he's really happy playing that role anymore. He's made it very vocal that he feels like he's sort of being forced into doing so these days. Yeah, look, I think that absolutely. Is that whole Donald Trump thing really confronting in the way in which someone is so heavily mocking somebody? You know, and that's where I think that you'll find that where does it all start? You know, where do we start to try and change these things?
It's exactly the same as the plastic surgeon, which you're saying is really bad. Alec Baldwin is making fun of every little kind of intricacy of Donald Trump.
I'm not defending.
I'm sorry. How is it different?
Did I say that? Did I say? I'm sorry.
No,
did I say that?
Saying Donald Trump shouldn't be mocked.
I don't think that people should be doing. No. Look, the thing is, that style of humour, and I'm going to be really honest about this, I have laughed my ass off at that episode of The Golden Girls we're going to talk about. I loved all of these shows that have been cancelled, Fawlty Towers, everything. I've loved them. I've loved sensually inappropriate comedy. And then what's happened in 2020 is that I've had an aha moment, thanks Oprah, and I'm just going to start thinking about things differently. And if it means that I save one life by not laughing at Alec Baldwin dressed up as Donald Trump, then that's what I'm going to do.
It's a big change to our society to put limits on what you can and can't do when it comes to comedy.
We need a huge change to society, people. The world is round. We're looking at things differently. Just because we always thought the world was flat doesn't mean that we always thought that. We need to change the way in which we are being racist and culturally inappropriate. And if we have to start grand and start looking at things on a bigger scale, that is what we need to do, people.
But there's always been an argument, Ben, that people in the public eye are open to ridicule and commentary. And
no.
Hang on.
No.
Because people get to make political points with that. Alec Baldwin playing Trump is making political points. You know, even 30 Rock, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt here was making a commentary about what this guy stands for. You know, this guy is selling a dream or was selling a dream to people. I think it's terrible that he it speaks to so many issues about himself, which is why he had all the plastic surgery. But he dined out on the fame that brought him. Why shouldn't he be held up to account for that?
The man is dead. So he is dead because 2 weeks after a show was played, he killed himself. And I'm just going to say that one person killing themselves is not okay. And so we need to look into that.
I understand that, but I question the idea that you literally can't say anything to anyone. I could say to Robbo, "Oh, geez, Robbo, your hair's looking a bit strange today." Now, a simple comment, right? You know, but how do I know that that's not the breaking point for Robbo and that leads him to kill himself? You know, like we cannot
But look,
know.
I think that you're trying to use a really stupid example there by making that reference.
Because there are breaking points for people.
Can I just quickly say, I put myself on this show, right? I put myself out there. I do this show. I do, whatever I can, and I do my hair like this. If I don't want any kind of ridicule or any kind of comment back or any kind of possibility of comment back, then don't do the show. Then don't go on social media. Then don't put yourself out there.
No, I don't necessarily agree with that.
What you're saying?
I've put myself in places ready for, I guess, commentary. Look, put it this way, I was on Big Brother. Come on. I mean, I asked for it. But at the same time, was I not allowed to go on Big Brother? And then was it okay for all those people to come and tell me that I should kill myself because I'm a homosexual?
No,
so, I'm just saying, okay, but you're saying to me, because I put myself out there and because I dined out on my $250,000, it's totally okay for people to come for me because I asked for it?
No, honestly, with that example, of course not. I would never want anyone to tell you to kill yourself just for being who you are. Of course not. I think, and I apologize, Ben. I didn't mean it to sound like that. I really do. Hold on, Rob. I really do feel bad about that, and I don't mean to attack you like that. And of course, we've heard about people, on Big Brother on this current season, being told to kill themselves, like Alan is, told to kill himself and things like. And sorry, not Tully, but what's the other girl's name? You know what I'm trying to say. All I'm trying to say is, yes, it's a very grey area, isn't it? Like.
It is a great area. This is the reason why.
I don't know how to come back to that, but I also don't think we should cut comedy and we should cut parody. But what you're saying there, I can't fight back on because I agree with you. So I just don't know. I just don't want to see comedy.
It's going to take time
because
it's going to take time.
I would.
It's going to take time.
Ben, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that, Ben. Sorry.
I would.
That's okay. I really appreciate the apology.
We absolutely get that, and of course. One, we don't want anyone killing themselves, and we all respect that. And, I think it's tragic that he did. And the only reason I went down this path is because we're talking about a young man who isn't in the public eye, saw himself so closely depicted on a series. And I was trying to use that as comparing to other things going on, and there hasn't been an outcry about this. That episode still goes on. Tina Fey has pulled episodes of 30 Rock based on blackface being used, but a guy killed himself, and that wasn't enough to get that episode taken away. So I just don't think there's an even playing field here. Nobody wants any kind of commentary about telling people to kill themselves is not on and not acceptable. But where do we draw the lines as far as parody and making fun of those in positions of power? And I would love to know the people's watching this show, your response. We'll be doing feedback very shortly. So get on, use the hashtag BRR show on Twitter. Go to facebook.com/BRR show and post in the video, post in today's video. I really want to know this because we are in this territory now. And as Ben said, there's a lot happening in entertainment that's also going to feed into this. So it's an ongoing issue and it's one that's not going to go away soon. What are the limits?
And Robert,
really
quickly,
interested in your thoughts.
Yes.
Yep.
Really quickly, obviously, because we've been discussing this, we just want to say if anyone's watching and have issues, you can call Lifeline on 13 11 14. There's also Beyond Blue and Kids Helpline as well. So make sure you reach out if you're having any of the kind of issues that we're talking about today.
Yes, please reach out for help. Those organisations are invaluable and will help you. So please go and do that. And it's funny, I've even got a guy online that I talked to on Twitter who's been going through some issues and been open about it. And the last thing I would want to see him do is take his own life. And it's something that means a lot to me. So, nobody is advocating that. Nobody wants that. So let's just be very clear about that. Look. Let's take a little break for us, but get you all the latest that's going on in the world of news with Aaron Young in the Ticker Newsroom.
Thanks, Rob. You are watching Ticker's news headlines. These are our top stories. Victoria could be heading towards a second wave of coronavirus, the state recording 49 new cases of COVID-19 just yesterday, the highest number of new cases since early April. Of 2,000 cases, 4 linked to known outbreaks. Pop-up clinics and mobile testing booths now being rolled out in hotspot areas. Saliva testing will be used in a world first as well. The military is being called in to assist. Virgin Australia's administrators have entered the public sale agreement with Bain Capital after the private equity rival Cyrus withdrew on Friday. Bain will start to take control of Virgin from Wednesday, a multi-billion-dollar deal to take over the airline. They're pumping in $600 million capital this week alone. President Trump has deleted a tweet approving a video showing one of his supporters chanting "White Power," a racist slogan associated with white supremacists. Deleting a tweet or backtracking, pretty rare move for the US Commander-in-Chief. A Facebook advertising boycott campaign's drawn support from a rapidly expanding list of large companies. Organisers now preparing to take the battle global, increasing pressure on social media company to remove hate speech. Finally, Microsoft will close its retail stores, take a related pre-tax asset impairment charge of $450 million in an effort to cut costs. We are told those Microsoft stores closing now will not reopen. Now, the weather map for the remainder of this Monday: Melbourne, after a freezing start to the day, climbing to 15 but sunny. Sydney, showers and 17 degrees. Brisbane, cloudy and 22 degrees. Showers for Perth, sunshine and 15 degrees for Adelaide. Let's have a look at the ASX. It has dropped on the open. Some significant concerns about a second wave here, but also more importantly as well, what's happening in the US, where there are thousands more cases every day. 35,000 new cases announced over the weekend in the United States. Let's check the Dow. This was before the Dow closed on Friday their time, Saturday our time, which shows the sort of sentiment that they're experiencing there and what we can expect as the market opens in the US later on tonight our time for the start of their week ahead of the big earnings season, where we'll find out exactly just how bad things have been. But the pictures from the maps showing the markets today not looking great. But that is the latest news from Ticker. Now back to the Ben, Rob and Robbo show.
Geez, those figures are shocking, Aaron, aren't they? So thank you for that. We'll see you tomorrow. Now here's Ben.
Well, it was a huge night on Channel 7 last night with Big Brother. Shane Vincent was the latest Big Brother housemate to be evicted, and he joins us on the Ben, Rob and Robbo show now. How are you, mate?
No dramas. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, it takes a lot of guts to join Big Brother. What was your decision for wanting to take part in this reboot for Channel 7?
I actually got sent the link from a bride that I married, and she said I'd be good on the show, and I hadn't heard of it for a long time. So I clicked on the link and applied, and lucky enough, they chose me to go on. I was surprised.
You know, with the format changes being that it's so strategy based, and you being from the GC, probably more familiar with the old school Big Brother, what was the biggest surprise that you found being in this new version?
Just having to form relationships and then having to stab people in the back, basically, and get them out. That was the hardest thing to do, because on the old Big Brother, you just were in there to have fun and be friendly and be nice, you know what I mean, and have a good time and drinking, you know. This is more of a strategic way of, I guess, the format, and having to win nominations to vote people out and all that sort of stuff. It was, it's pretty emotionally draining.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, I did a bit of stalking of you online when I found out about you being on the show, and a lot of people talking about you being the most funniest, most vibrant, most lovely and sincere marriage celebrant. So you'd think that that would translate really well into winning some fans. I will say, watching you organically respond to making a bit of a blunder with your attack on Matt, is there any regrets that you have on making that attack on Matt, you know, before you're eliminated?
No, I think moves have to be made in that show, and I don't regret making the move. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a boring narrative if you just follow everyone around, like the alphas and stuff like that. So I don't regret making a move. I regret people not supporting me for making a move that they said they would. That annoyed me.
Well, this is the point that I really want to get to. I felt like maybe you didn't do enough research on your numbers. Maybe you didn't realize there wasn't as many people there. Was that maybe a factor?
No, I don't think the numbers. I thought I had numbers because Ange told me to my face that she would vote for Matt, and so did and Sarah told me to my face she was going to vote for Matt as well. So with that, those two alone, we would have had numbers. So I think obviously I wasn't privy to conversations that happened behind the scenes. So which is it's quite annoying when you're sitting there and I was devastated.
Well, I wouldn't trust Angela with anything except maybe making herself a cup of tea. You know, how do you feel like with Angela being on this show? You know, she's a big player. I think it would be amiss of me not to ask you this question. Has Angela been the biggest presence on the show? And was she the biggest presence in the house?
I think whether she was the biggest presence in the house is debatable, because I didn't see her as a massive dominant person. She spent a lot of time looking at herself in the mirror in the bathroom and in the diary room and sipping tea in the cabana. So, I mean, she was never really part of a group. She was also always hanging out with Marissa in the cabana and just watching things happen, I guess. And then, but yeah, I don't think she was a massive dominant person in the house. When I landed in the cage, I could see that like Dan and Maddie were the alphas of the house, and these are the people that I had to make alliances with straight away, because I did come in late, so I had to hit the ground running.
I absolutely can relate. In 2012, I turned up. I was the last housemate to turn up in the house, and alliances had already been formed. And I remember thinking this is going to be my downfall. And surprisingly enough, I managed to come out good at the end. But look, I can completely relate to you
right,
when it. I wore them all down, is what I like to tell people. I wore them all down. Now, huge announcement in the media this week. It's an official announcement, not just me talking about it on my blower. But Big Brother's coming back for next year. So have you got any advice for people right now that are putting together their applications?
Yeah, be yourself, have thick skin, and be prepared to learn about yourself. So, and about what you can do, especially in those sort of high emotive states.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice. And I think to wrap up, I think what we also need to say is, do you think that series 2 of this reboot is going to be very different? Do you think people will have learnt a lot from watching how this strategy has gone down this series? And do you reckon we're going to see a more strategic next season?
I think the people that will apply next year will know the strategic play, so they'll be more prepared, and it'll be even more strategic next year as people know the gameplay. So they'll have at least a bit of an insight to how the game is played now, as we didn't. We were sort of dropped in the deep end and sort of go for it. But I think people will go in there having a bit of a step up for next season. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one. I hope they just show a bit more of the contestants, housemates' personalities and backstories, so Australia can get to love them, because we did have 20 people in that house that Australia didn't really get to see. So
yeah, look, I feel like, they are already talking about the next series having a bit more of an extension. So hopefully we do get to see more personality. I will say one thing, though, and that is going on reality TV is hard, because sometimes the perception of you can be a bit brutal. You, my friend, came across as a fantastic person and a fantastic housemate. I'm wishing you all the best. I don't know if we can do this, Rob McKnight, but can we plug your business as a marriage celebrant?
Yeah, absolutely. Just go on Instagram, Shane Vincent Celebrant, or www.shanevincentcelebrant.com.au, and check out my website. I'd love to marry you. Doing weddings, same sex, doesn't matter. Come on down.
Yeah, I was going to say, I had some friends sending me some photos of your dad bod over the weekend, and that bod, my friend, is not a dad bod. That's life goals right there.
Mate, that's starvation in the Big Brother house.
Oh, I can relate. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Big Brother experience, and hopefully we'll get a chance to catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Ben. Can't wait to catch up for a drink.
It's the random life shot of the day. Where are you going today? You never know where you'll end up with the random life shot of the day.
And today we're taking you to Brooks Falls in Alaska's Katmai National Park. Easy for you to say, Robbo. Apparently it's the best place in the world to watch brown bears feasting on salmon as they swim upstream to spawn. There's going to be some rain as temps reach a high of 12 degrees after a low of 10. Let's take a look at some feedback coming into the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. And we've got this from News Guide 23. I love the show today, boys. It's great. You three are the greatest three ever. Yes, we like that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
Mary says the problem with politics is
Hi, Mum.
politics. Ben says, I am loving the look of the new studio setup, boys. Yes, we've all had a little bit of a refresh. And actually on topic, Amanda says, especially in America, it is a really fine line with what is free speech. I am seeing some very controversial things on Facebook these days. Those people truly believe what they are saying, though. Their take would be that their speech is being restricted, and why aren't anyone else's? And that's a very good point. Very good point.
Rob, can I just quickly ask, are you just using footage from, commercials for John West? The fish that John West rejects is the fish that he likes best or something?
Well,
That's what
maybe
that
that's
looks
where
like.
they shot it, Robbo.
Yeah, I think it might be. Wonderful shots. They're beautiful bears. Not
Live
the kind
shots.
of bears that I'm used to seeing, but they're still bears, I guess.
Are you an otter?
No, yeah,
All right.
no, I'm too fat to be an otter.
Here we
Oh, sorry, we on air? Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
I sometimes wonder. All right.
Let's go to Mulk.
It's time to talk TV with our good friend Steve Mulk. And Mulk, we just mentioned in our interview with Steve, Big Brother is coming back in 2021.
Look, what a great start to this segment, Ben, Rob and Robbo. Apart from the diabolical nature of whatever that was, the fact that Big Brother is coming back, you guys did this. You guys are responsible for this, and I want no part of it.
I think we are, to be honest. No one has shown Big
did.
Brother as much love as we have.
Mr. Warburton, you are welcome.
Yes, waiting for the champagne.
I'd expect some kind of special Christmas card to appear. Look, it is news. It's happening official. Big Brother will be returning for a new season in 2021. Casting is open right now for those that want to line up and get themselves into this debacle of a TV show. But, enjoy it if you want to enjoy it. It's going to be held in the same house, I'd imagine remodeled, at North Head. We're going to see more of the same, hosted again by Sonia Kruger. I'd imagine that the same Big Brother voice will return in that context. But look, maybe you could be the next Angela, the next Ian, the next Kieran, or the next Jermaine.
Be careful, Mark.
The next who? Look, I just want to say, where's all this sass coming from? I mean, you are somebody who I recognise as being a huge supporter of Big Brother over the years. So you're saying this new Channel 7 version hasn't sent the flag up the flagpole for you?
That's one way of putting it. Absolutely. I ticked into the first 3 episodes and promised that I would hang in and give it that much of a run. Initially, I said, and will stand on my record, that I was concerned about the casting. I actually think they've done all right with the casting. The difficulty has been the fact that all we get is this 90-minute compressed, edited, way too pacey for mine version of a show 3 nights a week. And we don't actually really get to know any of the housemates. We don't get to know who they are and what they like, and those sorts of things.
I think that you're making some valid points with that. I think that what I've heard in the last 24 hours is that there may be a little bit more content. There may not be an eviction every episode. And I think there's some significant changes into making that format. I think this is a really good step in the right direction with what Channel 7 has done. And clearly there's enough people out there still watching it. I do believe that they were going to roll into a Series 2 regardless. So, the Series 2 is probably not a true reflection as to whether or not the show has absolutely kicked its goal. However, I will say one thing, and that is that what they could do, and the one thing I really miss, is Mike Goldman could come back and do some of that narration. I know Mark Goldman's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think he does a fantastic job, and it might sort of just make people feel like the audience is being heard. But my question for you after that long monologue is, so with COVID-19, are we seeing ourselves coming out of the woodworks with this? Are things going to be changing?
Look, we're certainly starting to see production ramp up, and that's really key to the health of the Australian TV and media industry. That's a really good thing. The fact that we're starting to see not just Big Brother casting, and the fact that we've seen already calls for Junior MasterChef, which is going to fill out Channel 10 slate along with the Bachelor series franchises. They've already admitted that The Amazing Race is going to have to bump into 2021 because of the production issues that coronavirus have presented them with. But they're starting. They're casting for that. You know, we're starting to see these casting calls out. We're seeing hints that even Holy Moly, the mini golf program that Channel 7 were looking to get involved with, that had American sets, they're looking at actually building those sets here in Australia and opening the doors to production companies to come and land here in Australia and make the show, which is a boon for producers and crew and those sorts of things here in Australia. And of course, the tourism side of things. Initially, I'd expect it would have to be fairly limited, right? We don't want to just let anybody into the country and go nuts because we want to try and maintain our really low sort of coronavirus situation. However, the building of this production stuff is really, really key because that gets people who have been out of work ostensibly for the last 3 or 4 months back into work.
All right, Molk. Sorry, I've got to interrupt you. I am absolutely bloody fuming at the moment because that bloody Murdoch press has had a go at my BFF forever, Ida Buttrose. What the bloody hell are they saying about her?
Yeah, look, it's filled many column inches today in the Oz and, of course, across News Corp publications in a response to some criticism, as you'd expect, that came towards the ABC around it bringing out its 5-year plan, which said we're going to try and do these things and do the best with what we have. You know, the numbers are shrinking, the budget is shrinking. They went over, well, they're getting paid too much, whatever, and all of the rest of it. And the chair, Ida Buttrose, came out and delivered what would the Australia look like without the ABC? A really excellent piece talking about, you know, the pros of having the ABC in our media landscape and the things that it brings and the way it connects with people right across the nation, reminding us really of its place. And then even today, News Corp have doubled down and said, oh, what a load of posh and blah, blah, blah. It's really that ongoing slanging match. For mine, I don't understand why News Corp don't call the government to make sure that the ABC is not just funded but overfunded and finds a secure place within the Australian media landscape. Because if the ABC went away, they would have to halve the size of the Australian just to take out all the bitching and moaning about the ABC.
That's true, Mark. So I've got to maintain my tough persona here. I just quickly, whose side are you on? Just really quickly, whose side are you on?
Can't give the ABC enough money.
Great. And also, Ita's watching. I know Ita Buttrose loves the show. Ita, if you need to get some of my friends to, you know, rough a couple of people up, let me know. I stole that line from Kyle Sandilands, but I think it still works.
Look,
I love the woman. I love the woman.
Yeah. And I'm loving this new persona that you've taken on, Robbo, as being the ass kicker of the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. Totally unbelievable. But
Robbo's the ass kicker. Awesome. God help us.
Can you see it? It's there. Can you see it? I wish we could. Hold on. Maybe we could zoom in quickly. Maybe you can see it.
Squishy.
Can you see? No. Is it there?
There's definitely, mate, those tuck shop bloody arms are going.
All right.
Chicken wings.
On this very bizarre note, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your insight, Malk. We'll see you next week.
If that's what you want to call it, sure.
Thanks, Malk.
For more Malk, just go to tvblackbox.com.au. Listen to him on the TV Black Box podcast and the TV Binge Box podcast and many radio stations throughout Australia. Thank you, Malk. All right, now here's Robbo.
Robert, thank you very much. Well, last night on MasterChef, 7 became 6 when we said goodbye to our favourite Kiwi, Tessa, in a very emotional goodbye. And this is the moment where hearts broke on both sides of the Dutch.
Tessa, you chose to meet the brief with your fusion of Mexican ideas and Indian flavours. Unfortunately, the smoky hot sauce and pineapple salsa left Mexican flavours dominating the dish. And that's why, Tessa, I'm sorry, you're going home.
Yeah, I did as best as I could. It was I couldn't beat Reynolds. You know, his mind is so incredible. But yeah, I'm bummed, but I'm really happy.
Oh, well, for goodness sake, I've got to say that I'm not really happy. None of us are really happy that Tessa is out of the kitchen, but she joins us now. Good morning to you, Tessa. Thanks for joining us here on the Ben, Rob and Robbo show.
Yeah, how exciting.
Sorry, we need to go again. It's afternoon.
I don't think it mattered, but okay. Have you got all the time in the world, do you, Tessa?
Do it again. Let's go.
Yeah.
Tessa, you chose to meet the brief with your fusion of Mexican ideas and Indian flavours. Unfortunately, the smoky hot sauce and pineapple salsa left Mexican flavours dominating the dish. And that's why, Tessa, I'm sorry, you're going home.
Yeah, I did as best as I could. It was like I couldn't beat Reynolds. You know, his mind is so incredible. But yeah, I'm bummed, but I'm really happy.
Well, you might be happy, Tessa, but the rest of the country is not happy that you're out of the kitchen. But thank goodness you are here with us right now on the Ben, Robbo Show. Welcome to the show, Tessa.
Oh, yes, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute bloody pleasure. Now, let's talk last night. We had two legends there. We got Poe and Reynolds. Describe the pressure being up against two MasterChef legends.
Oh, it's as you can imagine, like it is just so full on. Two of my legends as well, like people that I respect so much. So yeah, it was always just going to be difficult, but I was so glad that I was actually going up against those two out of everybody. I think it was always going to be a tough slog and I was ready for it. So it was fun.
Yeah, but Tessa, look, let's be honest here. Neither of those guys can cook, can they?
No, sadly,
just fluked it.
I wish they couldn't, but no.
Of course. Now, last night you made your signature tartare sauce with fish and chips. You're a Kiwi. You know, you're very familiar with that dish. Was it hard to lose on that dish?
Yeah, it was super hard. Like, that's my bread and butter, you know? Like, I grew up eating fish and chips, so it hurt a lot. It almost sucked more because I couldn't choose another option out of all of the classic dishes. Like, it would be silly for me not to choose fish and chips. That's how much it means to me. But it ended up, not paying off. So, should have done a creme caramel.
Well, no, that's all right. What's the best fish, though, to use for fish and chips, do you think? Number one.
I think there's heaps of different, types of fish that you can use. It just depends what you like. Like snapper's beautiful, flathead, even just normal cod is delicious. Just whiting, yum. Like there's heaps of fish that's yum. If
I told you, I'm just telling you from a friend, that they only eat frozen packaged fish, what words would you have to say to them for that?
I've only had a couple of frozen packet fish that is actually nice.
Oh, okay.
It all comes from overseas. It's just not good. It takes no time at all to be able to prepare your own fish. Do a quick crumb on it, fry it in the pan. It's so easy. I don't know why people buy packet fish. Honestly, my dad buys it and I'm like, what? You're from New Zealand, good seafood, you're living in Queensland. What's wrong with you, mate? But
what's your dad's name? What's your dad's first name?
Hess.
Hess. I've been telling Hess for years that he shouldn't be bloody buying boxed fish. I would never buy boxed fish. Let's move on with the interview now. Yeah. Despite all the pressure, you always seem to remain so calm and level-headed. What's your secret?
I have no idea. I've only learned this recently that I look like a Terminator, but I actually am freaking out on the inside. So, I think in my head, I'm there's bigger things in the world to be worrying about than a cooking competition. That's what I always sort of keep front of mind. So, yeah, I think I just don't really take it too seriously, which pays off and doesn't pay off. I pretty much just like to have fun with it.
I think that's a fantastic way of looking at it. Brilliant. Now, you've got a dream actually that you'd like to pursue. And as someone who lives on the Sunshine Coast, I'm very excited about hearing it. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, I just think it would just be so amazing to be able to have a hinterland cafe or restaurant, some sort of food hub. Sunshine Coast Hinterland is just one of those places for me that is unbeatable. It's close to the water. It's tropical rainforest. It's perfect temperatures. It's incredible produce. It's honestly, the list goes on. And in my mind, I want to end up, with land there, working, living on the land, and just living a happy life. That's just my goal, is just to be happy.
Oh, it sounds perfect. And let me tell you, I live on the Sunshine Coast, and everything you said is absolutely correct. We can't wait to have you here. Now, very quickly, Tessa, what is for your tea tonight?
Oh, what's for dinner tonight? Do you know, my plan tonight is to go on the project, and then after that have a wine with a couple of friends and maybe get some takeaway pizza, because this has been a roller coaster for me. So I think, maybe I'll give myself the night off.
I think you've absolutely deserved that, Tessa. Thank you so much. Now, before I let you go, make sure you give my love to Hess, and stop eating that bloody box fit. Thank you so much for your time, Tessa, and enjoy that wine. Oh, good. No worries. Have a good night. That was Tessa there, the late.
It's the Ben, Rob, and Rob.
Sorry, Robbo, we cut you off. It's time to go. We'll see you tomorrow on the Ben, Rob and Robbo show. Bye-bye.
It's the Ben,
I'm going to eat a pie.
Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo.